And we are live. SJG Perspective. Alrighty then. How are you guys? It is the day after Christmas. It's good to be moving past. I love the holidays, but it's also kind of draining after the holidays, and I'm kind of glad to move on. Actually, I love Christmas, but anyway. That's not what I came here to talk about. I wanted to do just a really quick video. Sorry if that was loud. I hit the red on that one. On Venezuela and on what happened about a year ago when Maduro said that he didn't want to use the petrodollar anymore. Why did my video just say this video was unavailable right now? Why did it say that? Why is it saying that? My stream is still healthy, but the video was unavailable. Interesting. Well, I'm just going to carry on. I don't know why I did that. Anyway, that doesn't matter. Basically, of why and what's going on currently. So, there's a little article you could go to and you could read if you felt so inclined. Let me pull it up here. It is kind of an interesting little read. It wouldn't take you too long. Basically, it's from what's it from? The Duran. Is that from like the Duran? They're missing one of the Durans. Oil-rich Venezuela is abandoning the U.S. petrodollar. Plans to introduce new international payment system. This article is about a year old, and Maduro, I don't know if he's done his homework, but that didn't work out real well in the case of Libya and Gaddafi. It also didn't work out real positive for old Saddam Hussein. There was oil connections with the whole Syria debacle, as we've covered in other videos. And it's happened other places where people say, screw you, we don't have to use a petrodollar to trade in oil. And then the U.S. doesn't like that when you don't play nice. So this article, I won't read all of it. The gist of it is Maduro, now I'll just read you a little couple snippets. I'm announcing that Venezuela intends to introduce a new international payment system and to create a currency basket for the liberation from the dollar. And we intend to free ourselves from the clutches of the dollar, the currency that is strangling our country. There's other things strangling your country too. Don't blame it all on the dollar. But he does have a point, and I am not a Maduro fan or a big socialist fan or whatever. You know, this isn't about whether or not he's a good guy or not. It's a fact that when countries move away from the petrodollar, bad things happen to them. That's basically what I'm trying to say. And it says, if they pursue us with the dollar, we'll use the Russian ruble, the yen, the Indian rupiah, the euro, Maduro said. Maduro plans to see the weakest of the two official foreign currency regimes and a basket of currencies. Currently in Venezuela, $1 buys 3,300 bolivars. According to the central bank, according to the central bank, period, got ahead of myself. At the strongest official rate, $1 buys just 10 bolivars. I don't know if it's called bolivars, but I'm going to say bolivars, okay? So if I'm wrong, sue me. But on the black market, the dollar fetches 20,193 bolivars. Like bolivars. Bolivars of broken dreams. $1,000 of local currency bought when Maduro came into power in 2013 would now only be worth $1.20. Kind of sounds like other currencies that people trade that is not really a good investment. And I'll just leave it at that. On August 25th, U.S. President Donald Trump signed an executive order imposing financial sanctions on the Venezuelan government. The White House said the measures were carefully calibrated to put financial pressure on Maduro's government. I bet you that they were. It's important to note that Venezuela sits on the largest amount of oil reserves in the world. That is a coinky dink, okay? That has nothing to do with us demonizing Venezuela and us wanting to get all up in their business. That is just that just happens to be that they got a lot of oil, and now they don't want to use our dollar to trade that oil, right? It's all just a big coincidence. You can go through and read about how many reserves there, or how much reserves they have, and there's a little chart there. Read it yourself. The United States previously threatened to sanction anyone involved with the Constituent Assembly, which was elected on July 30th. So let me read that again. The United States previously threatened to sanction anyone involved with the Constituent Assembly, which was elected on July 30th of last year. I've only read this article once. That's interesting. So what is the Constituent Assembly, you might ask? The Constituent Assembly is a legislative body which has the power to amend Venezuela's constitution. The election of the assembly took place amid mass deadly protests across the country. It probably was a completely organic protest that other nations countries didn't have any part in maybe fomenting unrest, and wouldn't it be the U.S. or bad portions of the U.S. deep state that would cause those, or that would have been at play in those, protests and disruption in their workings of their government within their own nation state, within their own country. I doubt anybody would have anything to do with that. The Venezuelan opposition, as well as the European Union and the United States, have refused to recognize the body's legitimacy. Well, back the train up. So we've refused to accept what they have said. This is our body, our constituent body of assembly. This is what we're, within our country, what we're doing now. And they're saying, well, we don't accept that. It's not legitimate because you guys don't agree with us and you're not in our back pocket. So therefore we don't accept you and you're not legitimate. Maduro says this is part of an economic war waged by the opposition in Washington aimed at his ouster. So wait, we want to oust him? Are we interfering in this election, and are we interfering in the process of another sovereign nation? Because aren't we really pissed and thinking Russia did that to us with bots, social media bots, and other influence, backdoor influence on our election? And that really the backdoor influence was telling the truth on how corrupt and shitty our candidates were, and more specifically Hillary, and what nefarious shit she was up to. And then old Assange and WikiLeaks drops the dimes on him, and we say, how dare they do that? How dare they tell the American people the truth? We've worked really hard at keeping this from them, and it's interfered with our election. They're interfering with our democracy. Guess what, guys? We've done that to other countries far, far more and far more egregiously than probably any other nation in the world has done to other countries. I love America. I'm not up here bashing them. I'm conservative by nature, libertarian more by nature, but the truths are the truths. And we have effed with so many other people's democratically elected governments, whether or not there's corruption in their in the election, or it was a strong man or whatever. We don't give a crap unless we have some skin in the game, unless we are. It's important to us to have somebody in there that agrees with us and is on our side. That's all we care about. We don't care if it's what the people of the country wanted, but like you have a voice. We care, meaning America and our government and our corrupt ass government, cares about whether or not the people in charge of these other nations are friendly to us. It's in our interests. And if they're not, we do whatever we need to do to put the right people in. Yet we bitch and moan about Russia interfering in our election, which they probably did. That's not what I'm debating here. What I'm saying is, man, we should probably get that plank out of our eye before we start, pointing out the specks in these other people, countries, entities' eyes, if you will. This is the fight against the economic blockade of the imperial sanctions of U.S. President Donald Trump, said Maduro. And it isn't just Trump. I mean, he was in office when all this stuff went down. But and I'm not this isn't a defense against Donald Trump. It's just that this has been happening with all the different presidents. It isn't just a Trump thing. It's a president. It's a United States government thing. It's not, just solely some Trump screwing with Venezuela. We've been doing this before Trump was in office. We had them in our sights and we were smacking them around. That's always been, we've, dogged them and whatnot, because they don't like that we bully them. And they're now thinking about trying to figure out or found a way to have less ability for us to bully them. And so now we're really demonizing them and going to go after them. Will Venezuela and Nicolas Maduro share the same fate as Iraq and Saddam Hussein? Probably. Probably. So anyways, this was written a year ago. And then this article, it's not directly related, but kind of related. Venezuela calls U.S. comments on Guyana. We'll call it Guyana. It's probably Guyana. Could be Guyana. We'll call it Guyana for my phonetically challenged mind. Dispute interventionists. Venezuela's foreign ministry on Tuesday described as interventionist and disrespectful U.S. comments on a weekend incident in which the country's Navy stopped 2 ships exploring for oil for ExxonMobil off Guyana's coast. Don't know where Guyana's coast is. Don't even really know the relationship between Guyana and Venezuela. I'm just being honest. Didn't do the research on that. Just now reading the article. So anyways, but I find it interesting that we're tied up with that ExxonMobil's in the mix. U.S.'s comments are in the mix. We're going after Venezuela, saying that their human rights are bad. And I think it's in this article. So it's just interesting. This was just written a day ago. Each of the neighboring South American countries says the incident on Saturday occurred within its territorial waters. In response to the event, the U.S. State Department said Venezuela had behaved aggressively. That's kind of funny coming from us. And called on the country to respect international law and the rights of its neighbors. Okay. That's funny. It is evident that the U.S. government is interfering in a matter that it is not at all incumbent upon it. With the goal of promoting corporate interests closely linked to the Washington ruling elite. ExxonMobil. They're standing behind old ExxonMobil, helping them. And the ruling elite would be the deep state. The government within the government, if you will. Big money. The Foreign Ministry said in a statement, Socialist President Nicolas Maduro has accused the United States of plotting to invade Venezuela and overthrow his government. That sounds familiar. Again, it has nothing to do with oil. While Washington has placed sanctions on Venezuelan debt and members of Maduro's government, now this one's rich. Listen to this. We've placed sanctions on them because of corruption, human rights violations, and election rigging. So I have a question for you. Have we placed any major sanctions on Saudi Arabia? Way prior to this whole Khashoggi incident that went down, where, Khashoggi, the journalist who spoke out against, the Saudi Arabian government, who was I believe he was applying for citizenship here. I don't think he was. I think he had a residential visa or whatever. Who got chopped up into little pieces by, now that it's now confirmed, was a Saudi Arabian king prince, Mohammed bin Laden, or bin whatever, Mohammed bin Samadi, whatever, MBS. I guess we'll just call him MBS for short. We haven't done crap. And guess why we haven't done crap? Because we are in bed with the devil. Saudi Arabia, their human rights violations far exceed and pale. Will pale other countries that we call human rights violations. They will pale those in comparison. They are horrendous. But the reason we don't call their shit out, and the reason we don't do anything to them, is because we have a deal with them. They're going to sell their oil with the petrodollar and we're going to protect them. That was set up in the 70s with Nixon, right? When we went off when we took the currency off of gold. It was a gold-backed currency up into the 70s, and Nixon said, "No, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to basically just back it with the good credit of the United States and our power and our might and our military," and essentially became backed by oil. Everybody had to buy oil with the petrodollar. So I mean, being an American living here and having a family and working in a job, having a job and so on and so forth, I don't want the petrodollar to fall, because if it does, it's going to put a big, humongous efferoo into the economy. It'll make the Great Depression look like a freaking Sunday picnic in the park. Sunday picnic in the park. It will pale it in comparison if the petrodollar got dethroned. We would have all kinds of financial meltdowns and issues and problems here in America, like massively. So that's why, but don't worry, it's not going to come to that. And the reason it won't come to that is if it was going to come to that, we'll find a way to go to war with somebody before that so we can distract people and so we can blame the economic disturbance on the war, which will then also be a win-win situation for the military-industrial complex, because then all of a sudden we'll be at war and we'll be able to make a lot of money making war shit. Anyway, don't know where I was in this article. Oh yeah, just the whole corruption, human rights violations, and election rigging. That's why we're sanctioning Venezuela. Okay, has nothing to do with the fact they don't want to play by our rules and they're sitting on a shitload of oil. Has nothing to do with that. It's because they're really bad to people. That makes sense. I'd buy that for $1. Haven't heard that phrase for a while. I was back by that for $1. A century-long territorial dispute between Venezuela and Guyana has flared up in recent years, with Exxon's discovery of more than 5 billion with a B barrels of oil and gas off of Guyana's coast in OPEC member Venezuela. Crude output is hovering near 70-year lows amid a severe economic crisis. Now, their economic crisis, I don't know all the ins and outs about it, so I'm not going to try to speak to it. But it probably has a lot to do with their socialist, their dumb, crazy socialist mentality on the whole, structure, socialist structure. But it probably also has a lot to do with that we're effing with them, again, because they're not playing nice when it comes to oil. I don't want to talk about all the issues of it. I'm trying to stick to the fact that they don't want to use the petrodollar anymore. And all of a sudden, they are bad people, and they are human rights violators, and they rig their elections, and they so on and so forth. It's just almost laughable. The demonizing we do, let's say, against Russia because they messed with our elections and their terrible human rights violations. Their human rights violations can't hold a candle to some of these other countries that we don't do anything to because we have good relationships with them. And because we want to have good relationships with them. Anyway, you should go ahead and read this article. I didn't want to go on forever. I've already been going on for 18 minutes. How does that happen? I talk too much. Monday, the CARICOM group of 15 Caribbean nations, including Guyana, many of which have historically received subsidized oil from Venezuela under Caracas Petrocaribe program, said it viewed the interception by Venezuelan Navy with grave concern. Such acts violate the sovereign rights of Guyana under international law, the group said in a statement. I think we probably, I think that they probably intercepted them because it had more to do with the fact that Exxon was in there sniffing around and has cozied up to Guyana in some way to, get some oil. I don't know the whole story yet. But I just found this article interesting that had to do with Venezuela oil in the United States and us not liking them. And us, again, demonizing them. And one of the biggest parts about it I thought was funny is that we are sanctioning them because of their corruption, human rights violations, and election riggings. Wow. That's a beaut right there because, like I said before, I don't know if I said it on this one or not, but we've done a lot of election rigging and election interference with other countries. That's our history, man. Coups and influencing and supporting certain leaders and giving them the ability to either, enact a coup or overthrow the current government so we can set people in place that we want in certain countries that are, nice to our points of view, if you will, that have our United States interests in mind, and we don't give a crap about if it's democratically elected or if it's the will of the people of that country. If it's not the will of our people and in our country for another country, another state, nation state, then we find a way to put somebody else there. And especially when it comes to the petrodollar, and especially when it comes to screwing with the petrodollar, that doesn't work out well for the people that do that. Not ever. So anyway, that was about it that I had right at this main little dealio. And I appreciate you guys tuning in. I was just actually testing the stream. I know it's not that well. Everything's well thought out. You could probably poke a lot of holes in it. Go right for it. I just find it interesting how we've messed with Venezuela so much. And it has to do with oil. And now how we demonize them so bad. So until next time, I appreciate you guys tuning in. And we will talk to you soon. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. And until then, we'll see you later. Bye. I'ma go get it tonight.